art challenges. They can be so fun and wonderful, and there is an infinite amount you can find online. And one of these, well, there is this very niche, you probably never heard of her before, artist here on YouTube by the name of Emma Artley. Well, she made a character design challenge a few months back, where you use Pinterest to not only design characters, but to come up with a story for them, and I really liked the idea. So now I'm doing it myself. And originally I was gonna follow Emma Artley's challenge to a T, but then I thought, what if I twisted things around a little bit? Basically, I took the framework of Emma Artley's Pinterest challenge and made it compatible with this original story I have called Liminal Lost and Found, aka Laugh. I've made a few videos on this topic before, but for those who don't know, Laugh is just my take on the backrooms, but it's called the Liminal. Also add in the concept of Traverse Town from Kingdom Hearts, because some of the people who have ended up in the Liminal came together and built this community called Little Town as a way of survival, and maybe as a way to get back home. But not everyone in the Liminal lives in Little Town. There's this villainous gang led by this fox guy named Saturnus, who are just up to no good. And there's also just a bunch of beings in the Liminal who do their own thing. So since the setting is taken care of, I got rid of that component as well as the season, because, you know, the back rooms. But to make up for this, I did add this wheel to determine if the characters I'm making today are a villain, a resident of Little Town, or just doing their own thing. I'm also doing 3 random years, one for each character to influence their design and whatever life they had before they came into the Liminal. And to keep my results interesting, I used a wheel as a modifier for certain search terms, and at some points I even used other sites like Google and Coolors. I'm really stretching the rules of this challenge, but I hope that doesn't deter you, and hopefully you'll stick around while I make some funny characters. So random year generator, I have 3 years set up for each character. So we have 1763, 1663, 1905. Interesting. With the setting all these characters are going to be in already decided, I decided a good way to kind of keep it random was to have teehee, their kind of roles or backgrounds determined by the wheel. So villain, you know, someone who serves an antagonistic role. Little Town, basically someone who is someone who lives in Little Town, an ally, whatever. And Loner is someone who's doing their own thing in the Liminal. I guess a more neutral force. So for character 1, they will be... You know, I'm gonna be bad. I know Little Town, like someone else who lives in Little Town, but we did get someone else who was a villain, and we do have 3 characters, so I'm going to betray the wheel. Feel free to take me down for this, but I kind of want to have like one of each. So this next character will be someone who just does their own thing in the Liminal. So I decided that for like to make the hair colors for characters more interesting, that there would be a descriptor. So like a vibrant pastel. Those are pretty self-explanatory, I think, and normal is just your typical hair colors seen within the human hair color range. So for this first character, it'll be vibrant. So whatever hairstyle we get for 63 hairstyles, it'll be a vibrant coloring. This is interesting. Maybe if I do, because I just want like one singular color as a result. So I was afraid, because like I just want like one color, right? Just one color. Trial and error. Let's do like Google vibrant colors, or vibrant color. That way we're not getting plural. Okay, since we're still like getting the multiples and not like one single color swatch here, I'm just gonna be bad. This shade of blue is his hair color. Since this was the first image, whatever the first one is, I guess, because this is like technically multiple accessories. It's the hat. We'll say the hat, because the hat, top to down. I think 3 colors, and then whatever the fourth one is, will make it work. So whatever that intense, vibrant shade of blue. So our color palette will be... That actually works. Everything has worked out for my advantage. Nothing bad ever happens to the Kennedys. See, this is what makes things difficult, right? In my brain. So, logically speaking, his hair color should be this right here, right? But I literally already have a character who has pretty much like that same shade of red in the same story. So I think I will be bad and go down one to the orange. So I hope that is okay with everyone. See, that's 1700s! That's 1700s! This is also 1700s! Pinterest, why are you like this? That's not historically... Okay, I'm gonna do this one because this is the actually one that seems the most like 1600s. Okay, I can work with this. I can work with this. He got a new pair of shoes in the liminal. It's fine. It's fine, everybody. It's fine. That's fine. Okay, we're doing this. We're doing this. Vibrant. Do nail color. And then just take whatever... I guess it's that green then. We're doing that green. Does it get to be holographic though? Because it's like holographic, right? Does her hair get to be holographic? God, that'd be really funny. Oh, maybe she ate something really messed up and made her hair green. That'd be so funny. So, the first guy here, he's from the 18th century. He is a villain, and he has blue hair. This guy is just Bluebeard. You know, like from the fairy tale, Bluebeard. Or maybe not exactly. First-time viewers, you don't know this, but I really like fairy tales a lot. I have a fair amount of characters in my brain based off of certain well-known fairy tale characters and tropes. And one of these characters is this lady by the name of Shinju Von Blue. And really quick, her deal is that she is a member of a long existing family called the Von Blues. And their whole entire family has this curse, and they are doomed to have every relationship in a tragic or painful failure, whether that be by outside forces or by their own hands. So romantic partners will always slip away, friendships are always abandoned, and even familiar relationships are strained. It's because of this, members of the Von Blue family, they tend to either be jerks or mentally ill with toxic traits, or both. Shinju and the story she is set in is in this vague 1920s, 1930s setting. So I thought it'd be interesting if this first character here was a distant ancestor of Shinju's from 1763. Caspar, I've decided to name him, is a distant uncle of Shinju's that disappeared while on a hunting trip. While the rest of the Von Blue family thought Caspar died in the woods or something, in reality, he just ended up in the liminal. Caspar and his Von Blue curse manifests in a way that he is very vain and full of himself. Definitely a Gaston from Disney's Beauty and the Beast kind of vibes going on there. This character trait of his being a tie-in to the album cover that is part of his board, being a person looking into a mirror, a common symbol of vanity. Caspar's role in the story of Liminal Lost and Found is one of the people working under Saturnus. The fox promises power and resources to those who follow him, and Caspar, being the vain bully that he is glad to follow the fox. For now, as he plans to overthrow Saturnus and become the leader of their band of miscreants. What Caspar doesn't realize, however, is Saturnus is always 2 steps ahead. So, for this next character, here we have the little inspiration board, the blueprint for this character we're supposed to make, and the board suggests a medieval guy from the 1600s. And the thing is, I kinda already have so many of these attributes and other characters for Liminal Lost and Found. Like Saturnus, that fox guy I mentioned. He's from the Middle Ages, and he's also orange, like that hair color. Also, he has a younger version of himself from an alternate timeline that lives in Little Town, who's also orange, and from the Middle Ages. though he did change his outfit, so that might not be as obvious. Regardless, I also have another character named Levka, who has more of a fantasy RPG kind of vibe with, his magic tech sword. But a lot of fantasy takes from medieval aesthetics, and he has red hair that's very similar in, what's the word? Not hue, maybe saturation is the word I'm looking for. But you see what I mean, right? That shade of red and like the orange from this board. They're very similar in tone. So I felt like if I went exactly with what this character board had, I would end up with a character who just blended in. And the thing about Liminal Lost and Found is that there's these characters and they come from all different backgrounds and they're all kind of different from one another. So I know it goes against the rules, but I'd rather have something authentic to my little story here than something that fits with the challenge. So I hope that makes sense and you can forgive me for my transgressions. Regardless, I present unto you Intan Precoso, the romantic and somewhat analytical artisan chef who ended up in the liminal when he went and hid in the walk-in freezer at the restaurant he was working at, because he got fired in a way that he thought was just wrongful and he refused to accept being fired. So now, Intan lives in Little Town and has an interesting time trying to make whatever food he can with whatever strange ingredients can be found in the liminal and brought back to Little Town. I also thought it would be interesting that over the time that he has been in the liminal, for him to have a will they, won't they relationship with the current mayor of Little Town, Sandra Murphy. I thought it was a cute idea. And also a little tragic, because they're gonna have to go back to their home dimensions eventually, right? So this can't be like a thing. And if it is a thing, then it's not meant to last. Like, it's gonna have to end eventually, right? So cute and tragic, I thought was a great contrast there. Intan's look was very much inspired by this very obscure animated movie called Grindel, Grindel, Grindel. And I watched it about a week or so ago. You should really check it out too if you get the chance, because it's free on Tubi. So wink wink, nudge nudge. The film has this flat, cartoony style that in my zoomer mind, I could only really describe it as paint marker-like, which, makes sense because how films used to be animated. They'd paint on like the actual cells. Anyways, I just really wanted to try my best to imitate that. At one point I gave him longer hair, but I went back on that because I wanted to try and at least take some elements from the character board, which is also how he ended up being a chef. Like the hat that was on the image board, it kind of reminded me of a chef hat. And also the album that was on the board was a Smashing Pumpkins album. And you can cook pumpkins. So that's how I made that connection. Pumpkins also made me think of the holidays and how that would work in Little Town. I mean, Little Town, right, has existed for a little over 20 years in the story. It's an environment where we have all these different beings from all these different completely backgrounds and cultures coming together. If they celebrated any holidays, would everyone smash them up together as a way to combat homesickness? Or would they, maybe in this case, make up a new one? So I have this funny idea of Little Town celebrating what is known as Pumpkin Week, in which, much like the hundreds of thousands of salmon running up rivers to go to spawning grounds, I imagine there are these pumpkin creatures that migrate kind of near where Little Town is once a year. So I imagine for about a week, or whatever equivalent there is in the liminal, the inhabitants of Little Town, well, they hunt down some pumpkins and cook them, preserve them, and celebrate the bounty of food. Celebrate that they are still alive and the community that they have created within Little Town. And Pumpkin Week ends with this big old pumpkin potluck party for all of Little Town to partake in. Our final character for this challenge, I once again went off topic from what the board suggested, which is, I feel like, a surprise for no one at this point, given all the other shenanigans I've done. What really caused this, though, was just my desire to make a less human character. In this case, I wanted a robot, but the robot ended up being pretty human looking. Something about the color palette just reads as metallic to me, so that's what I did. Meet Robot Lady. I don't have a name for her, so much like other characters I've made for Liminal Lost and Found, if you have any ideas, comment them down below, and I might just take some suggestions and use that for her name. But for now, her name is Robot Lady. And making a robot character for Liminal Lost and Found is very interesting because I actually already have a robot in Laugh, a citizen of Little Town by the name of Barberbot 3000, or just Barberbot for short, who, as you can tell by the name, cuts hair. And I had an idea, right? So Barberbot is very cute, but not the most humanoid looking. And originally, I had plans for Barberbot just to be an unfeeling machine, like those robot waiters you see in restaurants sometimes. But when thinking about this robot lady, I realized I wanted to have an inverse of Barberbot. So Robot Lady will look very human, but not be very emotional, whereas I'm now making Barberbot into a robot that looks more like a machine, but acts and feels human. Does that make sense? I worded that really weird, so hopefully that makes sense. I just thought it was an interesting dynamic. Which brings me back to Robot Lady's design. So when I think of human-like robots, my first thought is always that movie Metropolis, which I haven't seen, but I know there's a robot lady in it. So Robot Lady's design, especially her helmet thing, was definitely inspired by it, which is very inaccurate because Metropolis came out in 1927, and that's a whole 22 years off of 1905, so say it with me, folks. Whoopsie! I was also kind of inspired by the mechons from Xenoblade a little bit. Overall, I wanted to give her a sleek look, but still have some extra baubles on her, like the hip plate things and the helmet. Just to add something kind of visual flair, something kind of strange and futuristic, if that makes sense. I at least tried to keep some other elements from the board, mainly the colors. Though, if I do remember correctly, I used a different shade of gray for her metal skin than the gray on the color palette. And thankfully, the green, that holographic neon green, ended up working really well with the other colors, definitely adding this futuristic pop to the whole thing. As for what she is doing in the liminal all by herself, I like to think that both her and either the person who made her or the person she is working for is in this cryogenic tube, and Robot Lady just refusing to move from the general area in which this person in the tube is. person in the tube. That sounds weird, but you know what I'm trying to say. Just refusing to move from the general area with her program or maybe something else that makes her want to stay by this person in the tube. So while I obviously didn't follow the assignment given by Emma Artley's Pinterest challenge and instead used it as more of a jumping off point to do my own thing, I still hope you got something out of this. Hopefully entertainment, maybe even rage. I hope not. Rage would be scary. Anyways, thank you once again to the ever-talented Emma Artley for making this challenge. And until next time, stay safe and be kind to one another. Bye-bye!